Yeah. So how did you start your journey in this space, Henry? Tell us more.
I first got interested in crypto way back in 2013 when I first bought a little bit of a Bitcoin. Nowhere near enough.
How much was that then? Do you remember?
I think it was like $20 a Bitcoin. I actually thought it would take many more years for crypto and digital assets to become as popular as they are today. I remember when I first came across blockchain technology, I thought this is really cool. It'll take a long, long time for this to actually become mainstream. One thing I anticipated was the environment we have today, where people were using digital assets to fundraise for digital asset projects. And that created a sort of recursive loop that really helped pump money back into the ecosystem and has moved things along, I think, much faster than even a lot of us in the industry have expected. To the point today that I personally think 2021 is going to be a pivotal turning year for digital assets. I think by the end of 2021, digital assets will be enough. Not everybody is going to own Bitcoin. I doubt most people's grandmas will own Bitcoin, but everybody will have heard of it and everybody will be thinking about it.
Fantastic. So with that said, you bought your first Bitcoin in 2013. It was $20.
Yes.
I remember about 2 weeks ago, I think Bitcoin hit 50,000 US dollars for one Bitcoin. Lucky
a little
you.
more at the peak.
All right. So with that said, probably Musheer, you can answer this first. Why do you think more than ever it is very important for everyone right now to have at least a basic understanding of crypto and digital assets in general?
I think two main things, right? And I agree with Henry. I think no one expected, or let me rephrase it, most people did not expect digital assets to become mainstream as quickly as they have, right? The ICO boom, in a sense, brought in regulatory oversight, and with that came regulations, and this allowed financial institutions to come in. And now that they have come in, there are two aspects that have grown. One is the technology itself, the underpinning technology for crypto, blockchain, and DLT has reached a significant state of maturity. Quite a few of them can handle large-scale transactions, and you also have a large amount of technology firms are actively involved in it, right? So scale is possible. Secondly is because financial institutions and the large-scale institutions are adopting crypto for and blockchain for their various purposes, you will come across different applications. So understanding crypto helps you realize what's happening in Industry 4.0. It's going to be a major element of that. And secondly, there is this change in decentralized finance that's kicking in with across governments to individuals wanting to express themselves differently when it comes to finance. And if you don't understand how that works, you could be left behind.
Right.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything to add to that, Henry?
Digital assets are the future. I think that's why we're all here. I'm sure we're preaching to the choir. But again, if you didn't believe in digital assets 6 months ago, I think it is exceedingly obvious today that this is where the interest and the flow is. And it's still, maybe to give people who aren't aware one quick stat, I've spent the last few weeks talking to a lot of investment banks about, a whole bunch of different projects. And I find it amazing how many banks I talk to, and they'll still say things like, look, crypto is very interesting, but it's still a small market. It's still too small for us to look at. And when it comes to something like market cap as a metric, maybe that's true. Even with the huge rise in Bitcoin prices over these last few weeks, the crypto market cap still, let's call it 1.5 trillion. That's nothing compared to a lot of other asset classes out there. What very few people realize, including in the financial industry, actually maybe especially in the traditional financial industry, is that the volume in cryptocurrencies is like nothing the world has ever seen before. I'll give you an example. Every single day, Apple, one of the most liquid stocks in the world, turns over about $10 billion US of daily turnover. Bitcoin turns over anywhere from $50 to $60 billion a day right now. So Bitcoin is 5 to 6 times more liquid than Apple stock. more liquid than any stock on the planet. When you think about it in those terms, I think you start to realize how deep the crypto markets have become and just how far digital assets broadly have become. And I personally think that we're at a stage right now, just like when Apple had launched the first iPhone, you know, and I was talking with someone a few weeks ago about Nokia. They're talking about innovation and why big incumbents don't adapt. And I was saying, you know, what I find really interesting is not why didn't people create smartphones before the iPhone. What I find really interesting, 2 years after Apple launched the first iPhone, surely at that point, it became pretty obvious that this was the wave of the future. Why was Nokia still so stubborn all the way until they just drove their business off a cliff and ceased to exist? I think a lot of financial institutions are in that exact scenario right now, where it's no longer a coming soon thing. Crypto assets are no longer a niche asset class. This has happened already. It's already become one of the most liquid asset classes in the world. So if you're a financial institution, what is your game plan is what I think people should be talking about.
Fantastic. All right. So as we know, crypto and blockchain is not just Bitcoin. I think everyone thinks that when they think of crypto, it's Bitcoin, probably to some extent Ethereum. But with that said, Musheer, with the greater adoption of BTC in mainstream finance, do you think everyone should put a bit of money into BTC and why?
I'm not going to make it an investment advice here, but I do. Look, I'll answer it two ways. One is BTC itself is effectively the North Star for crypto because it was numero uno, right? And it has this limited number of supply and everybody understands it. And everybody's looking at it as, in some cases, an alternative digital gold, though that's a debatable point, that's for later. But I do think getting involved or looking at crypto assets it's like looking at alternative assets. It's coming mainstream, but you have to look at your risk appetite. The beauty of Bitcoin, though, is that you don't have to worry about investing $50,000 to get in, right? Because of Satoshis and going into into fractions, you can invest as low as maybe $500 or even $100 to get a piece of Bitcoin if you want to hold on to it. And that's how I started, right? I started with going into an ATM in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has one of the first places in the world where Bitcoin ATMs have been there. And I purchased Bitcoin worth $70 and Ethereum worth $70. This is about a few years back, and when Ethereum and Bitcoin were maybe 90% below where they are. Now I need to go find my key to encash my Bitcoin and this thing. But all in all, I think that's been one of the key things that you can do it. You should take a little piece of it to understand it, because once you purchase something, you get more involved and engaged. So that's why I would recommend it. And it's not necessarily only Bitcoin. You can look at what is more relevant to your your lifestyle, maybe in which part of the world you are, and which may be more exciting. If you're in financial institutions, you want to test out something, XRP may be of interest. Somebody's looking at multi-policy, may want to buy a stable coin, while somebody else may look at Dogecoin because you want to follow Elon Musk and see what he's interested in. I think there's different reasons, but yes, I would definitely recommend putting in a little bit of money and get a taste of it. And once you understand more, you can start investing in it as part of your portfolio.
Yeah.
Absolutely. By the way, if people have questions, turn on your video and raise your hand. I mean, you could do it physically, but it's probably easier to raise your hand in Zoom. So we make sure we notice, and we'll come and we'll turn on your chat live, so you can ask us the question directly. If we can't see you, we won't be able to find you. So. Exactly.
We wanted to make this as interactive as we can. So please don't be shy. Again, you know what, Musheer, you have a very good point there. I think a lot of people, especially who are new into crypto and blockchain in general, they're not aware that, hey, you know what, that's the beauty of blockchain and tokenization. You can actually buy in fractions, which I think perhaps Henry can give a little bit of insight not just in crypto space, but also real world assets that, people like me and the rest of the people who does not really have a huge chunk of money in our bank to actually able to access investments that were previously reserved only to the wealthy.
Yes. I mean, look, I don't actually think the legal structure of assets is the problem. There's nothing wrong with the concept of shares or funds or bonds. It works fine. We don't need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to those legal structures. The problem is the paperwork, right? I think a lot of people don't realize that underpinning most shares, most equities everywhere in the world today are paper shares. In some countries like Hong Kong, you must have physical paper shares. But even in countries where they have, quote unquote, dematerialized it, you still have a PDF of a share certificate lying around somewhere. And to me as a technologist, that's still paper. And my whole interest in the digital asset and digital security space is taking those pieces of paper and turning them into digital blockchain-based tokens. Once we do that, the operational efficiencies that we get allow people to start thinking about things like buying one share in far easier fashion. I hear people talk a lot about like fractional ownership of shares. Again, I think that's all very interesting, but just at least being able to buy one share or transfer one share is, I think, already a big deal. I remember as a kid where if you wanted to buy things on those stock exchanges, you had board lot sizes, right? You had like 500 shares or 100 shares at a go because that's how much they wanted you to buy just for efficiency. Trading in today's world is becoming increasingly easy, but settlements, which is a bit that not everybody looks at, if you are just logging into, Robinhood, for example, that is still exceedingly painful, right? If you own a share of Apple that you bought on Robinhood, try and transfer it to a friend of yours. I dare you. Figure out how to make that work. You can, right? You can write into Apple and they'll do it for you. You can contact their transfer agents, but it's not an easy process.
It's a lot of work.
Right? You own that share. You should be allowed to give that share to whomever you want. In practice, most people are like, "Oh, sell it, give you the money, you buy the share again." And that really is, again, what we think digital assets can really help fix.
Yeah. No, that's actually very, you guys pointed out a lot of interesting points there. Now, this morning we had a meeting with one of the largest non-bank financial institutions, and we were having a casual conversations as to, how do we continuously improve in our career, right? So you obviously look at crypto blockchain from investments perspective and wealth creation. And also, I think for a lot of individuals perhaps here, how do you keep yourself or your career also up to date, right? So I think it's really important to really have understanding in this space, because in some shape or form, your role, if you work in a financial, even non-financial institution, there might have some blockchain elements in it. And yeah, so I think, so we're not going to take so much time because we want this live Q&A to be about our audience as well. So we see a number of questions here. So I would...
Anyone want to answer them live?
Precisely. I would encourage whoever wrote those questions to volunteer to ask them live on video.
Maybe they don't have time.
Anyone?
Anyway, I'll take the first question while we're at it, about how is Fusang addressing the transaction costs on Ethereum? That's a great question, because obviously with skyrocketing crypto prices on Ethereum and other blockchains and increasing congestion on these blockchain networks, transaction costs are going through the roof. To be honest, transaction costs, insofar as you think about, let's say, the settlement of shares, are still very reasonable. As I said, try and gift shares that you own. Oh, it's Emmanuel. I'm going to unmute you, Emmanuel. Come. Hello, how are you?
Yes. Hello to everyone.
There we go, like magic.
Hi, Emmanuel.
Yes, transaction cost has become an issue when you're thinking of buying tokens which are already on the network, and secondary trades have become hindered by transaction costs. So I was wondering if you are considering some technical solutions. I've experienced one solution with XDAI. There are other solutions which are currently tested before we have L2 live. So I was wondering, what is the Fusang approach?
Absolutely. And are you buying these on decentralized exchanges or exchanges where the actual trade somehow happens on a blockchain? Is that why you're paying the transaction costs on Ethereum?
Yes. Yes. If you're buying on Uniswap or other such platforms,
absolutely,
transactions have become an issue on Ethereum.
Absolutely. Quite frankly, this is why from day one, I always believed that the core matching engine, the matching of buyers and sellers, the trade matching should not happen on the blockchain, not right now, for two reasons. One is cost, as you say. Even if costs were 10%, 2% of what they are today, it's still too high for order matching, especially when you're allowing for high frequency trading, chopping orders up into potentially hundreds of thousands of orders, number one. And number two, it is too slow to do order matching on any blockchain. It doesn't matter if it is 1 second or 10 minutes, that's too slow. At least in today's trading environment, people expect order matching in milliseconds. And we can only achieve that with an off-chain matching engine. Where I think the blockchains are very useful for is settlements. So if I can do post-trade settlement even in 1 hour, let's call it, that is super fast compared to our current T+2 settlement cycles. And that's why I think Fusang, at least, we've got a pretty unique view about digital securities, where we are just, as I said, swapping the paper share sets for these digital tokens. We really do, the way we structure the market looks pretty similar to any stock exchange, the way you would trade it, route orders, etc. That's why we can allow both individuals and brokers to either come trade with our web-based portal or by linking it by API in exactly the way they're used to. Again, not to get into the technical details, but the important thing I think is people can just trade this like they trade any stock and think about it like they think about any stock. It's just that if I now want to, after having bought the stock, want to give this to Lindane, I can. And yes, even for that, transaction costs are higher than I would like. I don't think it should cost me $10. I hope it would cost me pennies. That's something that we are looking at. Maybe a forum for a discussion for a different time. Very transparently, Fusang is going to be talking about its own upcoming IPO soon, and I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about how we're going to use our token for the entire process and the underlying blockchain tech. But the real takeaway to me, never mind Fusang as a company, but more broadly, my belief is that the digital security ecosystem, for it to really progress, people need to stop thinking about these things as new assets and start thinking of it as a new technology layer and say, look, shares are great. Nothing wrong with the concept of shares. It's just how can we make it better operationally? Conversely, that also means don't freak out when it comes to thinking about these things in terms of how the instrument works. And at least that's our message when it comes to talking to regulators, right? Don't panic. A share is a share. This is just new tech. It's just like how we went from paper trading to e-trading.
Yeah, and thank you for this. I would have a follow-up question because your perspective here is more on listed securities.
Yes.
I'm interested in the alternative investment sector, and I think in terms of operational efficiency, digital assets have a lot to offer to this asset class.
Yeah.
And this is why the ability to make secondary trade efficiently and cost effectively is really a value proposition of digital asset.
Absolutely. Hey, maybe this is a great time for me to plug Fusang. I think a lot of you will have signed up for this event through the Fusang community app. Some of you, I think, signed up through Eventbrite. But if you just go to whatever app store you're using, because we actually just pushed a live app to both the Apple and the Google app stores, go down, just search for Fusang, download it, and you can send me a message directly. So we'd love to connect offline with you about this, because we've got some interesting ideas about exactly what you're talking about. So if you just ping me a message, if you search for my name in that community app, and let's get talking.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Great.
I
Well,
really
thanks,
appreciate it.
Emmanuel.
And I really appreciate you showing up on video. That's exactly what we want to do, including for the masterclass that we're obviously looking to host in a couple of weeks' time.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to talk more about that, just to give people or audience an idea on what they can expect on the masterclass. We're going to do it 26th and 27th of March. So it's a 2-day masterclass. So that's 3 to 6 p.m. Hong Kong time, Friday and Saturday. So I think we have one more question here.
Yes, sorry. Someone is changing the spotlights.
So is Nicola still here? Nicola, do you want us to read your question, or shall we put you on spotlight?
Oh, I see you.
Fantastic. Hi, Nicola.
Hi, how you doing? Yeah,
Where are you dialing in from?
I'm from KL. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I'm looking to join the podcast tonight.
Boy.
How long have you been in Hong Kong?
I've been here on and off for about 6 years now, but I'm Malaysian, you know. So
Yeah. So do you travel during this COVID time, or how?
not during COVID. I used to be on the road every single month between KL, Labuan, Singapore, all over. But I think, like all of us, have just been camped out this last year, unfortunately.
Yeah. So you've been kind of stuck there, or you live there now, or? How?
I wouldn't say stuck. I don't mind being here, but yes.
All right.
I've been here for the last year.
All right. Yeah. Yes.
You have a question on NFT.
Yeah. So I was wondering how you digitizing these securities. Is it something like the NFTs, like non-fungible tokens, or?
Not really. You know, to me, NFTs are a really interesting category. We'd love to hear what Musheer thinks about them in a second. But you know, to me, the securities often are fungible, right? So if I have shares of a company, for example, you know, as a shameless plug, Fusang has digitized all of our own equity tokens. These represent real shares in the company, same shares that I founder. You can view them on Etherscan, etc. Obviously, all of those shares are exactly the same, they're fungible. NFTs are very interesting, obviously, for unique assets. And actually, I think they're quite interesting precisely for assets that should not be subdivided. So, you know, my opinion has always been, you know, if you have people talk about a Picasso and owning a fraction of a Picasso. To me, the right way of doing that is to set up an SPV company to own that art piece, or to set up a single asset fund to own that art piece, not to try and do it directly through a token, because the question is then, who's managing this thing, right? I've got 100 owners, who takes care of it? Companies and funds are literally vehicles for fractionalizing ownership. If you think about it, that's what they are. And that's why I'm so interested in digital securities for that level of ownership. I think NFTs make a lot of sense when you have one asset, one owner. But Musheer, you have thoughts about NFTs are hot right now,
yes,
like I've never seen before. A friend of mine at Christie's just sent me a screenshot. The Beeple NFT is going for just over 3 million US as we speak, with a week to go in the bidding. So.
I think NFTs are interesting. I mean, if you go back to the CryptoKitties days, right, where they effectively clogged and jammed the Ethereum network to such a large extent, and you know, unique kitties were going for a few $1 million in some cases, and there was a thumb kitty. You could create whatever you wanted. I think NFTs have two elements to it. One is, as you said, it could be an artist sharing, it could be of a current or dead artist, whatever it is. It could be a piece of art, or it could be music, something that's coming up. So Wu-Tang could be releasing an NFT for his next album, right? So it's unique. It's, you know, almost like a one piece that if you wanted to release it and say only one person gets it, here you go at whatever cost there is. So I agree with you. It's just very different to digital securities, which tend to be traded often or exchanged hands, right? Whereas NFTs, It's more about the uniqueness of the piece, and they're not likely to exchange hands too many times. Now, what will constitute NFTs in the future is anybody's guesses. What would have been loved by people 10 years ago or 20 years ago is different to today, right? It could be a Bansky being sold using an NFT, and Bansky produces something just for his users, and he doesn't like, it's all on walls as an example. So it could be that, or it could be special editions from manufacturers that come out. So it's more of a collectible story rather than more of securities, which are more meant to help with trading and providing liquidity for products.
Yes. Although I would say Banksy would say it's not about the money for him. But
Sure.
anyway.
He does auction them away, right? So it could be for charity or whatever he wants to do it for, but that could be part, yeah.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
All right, nice one, cheers.
Thanks,
a lot.
Nicola.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Hope to see you in the masterclass. Anyone else from the audience?
As we wait for others, I just wanted to add, I think NFTs is going to be very interesting from how securely you can keep your private keys there. I think there's a whole custody business waiting to be built for just that. Imagine you lose your private keys and an access to that NFT that's gone now. Unlike if you were owning a piece of a Picasso with a digital paper or whatever, that could be replaced. But how do you replace? So I think that governance on that is going to be very, very interesting as it develops.
Fantastic.
I see a manual hand raise. I like it, old school.
I love it. Okay, Sansa, you're going to be on Spotlight. Fantastic.
Wait,
That's unmute.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much, everyone.
How are you?
Hey, hi, everyone. Thank you for sharing all those knowledge and insights. It's very, very valuable. Maybe one question for Henry. You just iron all the benefits of the blockchain and the tokenization in terms of efficiency, in terms of a settlement. You also, like you mentioned, about the demand, saying like now in terms of liquidity, the market is pretty hard. So in this case, like what's the next milestone to make the cryptocurrency being like a sort of a traditional assets going forward? So how do you see what is going to be the next milestone to have this as part of the different tools and investment products that we can have?
Absolutely, thanks. I mean, look, Fusang is obviously biased. We focus on digital securities, and our belief is that the way to make digital assets like traditional assets is to make digital assets represent traditional assets, right? That's why, as I keep saying, we're so focused on just creating digital tokens that represent shares, bonds, and funds. The reason why I mentioned those three vehicles is that with those three structures, you can encapsulate any underlying asset or obligation, in my opinion. Again, I could stick a Picasso into a fund, or I could have a company that owns a building, right? These vehicles were created, and again, I don't think there's, legally, these make a lot of sense in terms of how to fractionize ownership, how to have debts and obligations, not just in terms of the structure of the vehicle, but because there are hundreds of years worth of case law built up around understanding how these structures work legally. That's not the problem. The issue that we have in today's world is that there is a what I call a to B to B to B to C environment in capital markets. There are layers and layers of intermediaries when it comes to buying, trading, transferring stock. So for example, a great recent case was Robinhood, right? I think with the whole GameStop saga, a lot of people realize that when you go to Robinhood and buy stock, Robinhood is not the executing broker, right? They route trades to another broker who routes trades to another broker who routes trades to the exchange. And if any one of these players along the value chain decide to not do business anymore, you're stuck. And that's exactly what happened with GameStop. And I think that the whole point of digital technology in any industry, including in blockchain capital markets, is to bring what I call disintermediation, to change this into a B2C market, where me as an investor, we can come and we can trade directly, we can transfer directly, right? The whole point of what Fusang is trying to do is to say you can come and you can buy a share. Once I own the share, I can send it to Linde. I don't need anyone's permission. I don't need to tell anybody. Today, as I said, if I want to buy an Apple share and I want to transfer it to Lindane, I got to go figure out who the transfer agent is. I got to send in a contract note. Lindane needs to send in a request. We wait 2 weeks, we pay our fee, some paperwork gets moved around. And if I'm lucky, the shares will get transferred. Same sort of process, but just making it a lot more digital. And that one little layer, that one little shift, to me, really unlocks an entire world of possibilities about how we can begin to rethink how we can use securities, what that concept of ownership means, what it means to be a stakeholder and or a shareholder of a company. And that's what I'll be talking about in our masterclass. So you should come join.
Fantastic.
Yeah, definitely, I'll be there. Just maybe a follow-up question on from a regulatory standpoint. I realized that Fusang is a licensed digital stock exchange in Hong Kong. How do you see the regulatory relaxation to have like an ecosystem of different players to meet with that demand that you just mentioned earlier?
Look, so I mean, we're actually licensed in Malaysia, our stock exchange. And I completely agree, though, you need not just us as the exchange needs to be licensed and regulated. The issuers need to make sure that what they're issuing is done in, to me, a legally compliant fashion. If you're issuing shares to the public, that's called an IPO. You need to follow all the usual IPO rules. And I completely agree. We need a whole ecosystem of players around us to fulfill all of those roles. And my personal belief is that actually, all the roles that you see in the financial industry today, you are still going to need tomorrow. You are going to need banks and brokers and custodians and obviously stock exchanges like Fusang. That's not going away. What I think is going to change is that when the technology changes, the players are going to change as well. We've seen this happen time and time again in so many industries, and it's happened before in finance. So the analogy I always give is when we shifted from open outcry pit trading, when we're using hand signals to trade stocks, to when it became electronic trading, same job, still trading stocks, but all the stockbrokers changed. If I were to quiz you guys about who the 5 biggest stockbrokers in the world were in the 1980s, I guarantee none of you could name any of them except for maybe Lehman Brothers, right? When I talk about people like Kuhn and Loeb, people have never even heard of these people, right? Gone, because they couldn't adapt to the changing technology. And my personal opinion is it's going to be the same for finance today. You'll still need people to play the same roles. I suspect there'll be very different institutions playing those roles.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the question, Sansa, and we look forward to seeing you on the 26th and 27th. Great. Well, we have another gentleman who wanted to ask us a question.
Sanjeev, I think.
Sanjeev.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, good, thank you. Hello, Henry. Hello, Musheer. How are you?
Where in the world are you, Sanjeev?
Right here in Hong Kong.
Fantastic.
Okay, I have a question for Musheer. Just something to clarify. The digital tokens that represent the underlying equity, are they the same thing as the security tokens? Is that what they are? Or are we talking about a different animal here? Because in the world of crypto, you've got security tokens, you've got stable coins, you've got NFTs, whatever. But Henry's been saying, talking about digitizing the equity. So are you actually talking about a security token that is overlying the share? Is that what we're actually talking about?
Musheer, you're mute. Okay. Musheer. Okay, you're unmuted again. Okay.
There you go.
Go on.
Sorry about that. Great to see you, Sanjeev, and thanks for that question. Look, I think it's a straightforward point. Security tokens are a token under an essence, right, that behave like securities and have been classified as securities, and it depends from jurisdiction to jurisdiction what is termed as a security. Now, equities in almost all jurisdictions, if not all, are classified as securities. So if you are, tokenizing equities, or you're in full or in part, they become security tokens. That would be the simple answer. I mean, unless Henry thinks there's a slightly different way of looking at it. I think this is how I would look at it. So all equities in the major markets, if they've been tokenized, they are securities.
And I absolutely, Musheer. And I think it really depends on how people approach them. I think most people who are looking to create security tokens are actually having it represent a different layer. So they are creating something entirely new that they promise points back to an offline share somewhere else. This is just, Fusang's own personal house view. We really don't like that. For first reason is that regulators don't like it. When you come to them with a token and you say, this is a security, but it's not a share, it's not a bond, it's something else, they freak out, fairly so. And personally, I think you've just doubled up the work. If you have a paper underlying with a token on top, what's the point? I haven't saved any operational processes. So at least for Fusang, we really do believe that when you create these tokens, they should represent the share or the bond certs directly. That's how we structure them. Keep in mind, the concept of ownership in a share is more than a piece of paper, right? The world of bearer bonds is long gone. You got to watch all the James Bond movies to still see them. Today, all securities need to be registered in someone's name. So just because I hold a piece of paper, that's just what you call best evidence of ownership, right? It's the combination of paper plus ID registered on a company's cap table that equals to right of ownership as either an equity or a debt holder. And by swapping out the share cert for a digital token, that's where we think the main operational efficiencies lie. And again, when we take this concept to regulators, they actually love it because it means that we can give them full and real-time transparency into companies' cap tables. If you think about huge public companies like Apple, the Nasdaq doesn't know who all of Apple's shareholders are. There'll be layers and layers of what you call intermediated custodians and brokers. Someone somewhere is supposed to know who owns every share of Apple at any given time, but there's no single consolidated record. And especially with a lagged T+2 settlement cycle, I'm guaranteed that no one is 100% sure at any given time who owns every Apple share. Blockchain obviously allows us to track all of these things in close to real time. And that's why we find that when we do talk to regulators, they actually are very supportive of the technology as long as we can show them that we're fitting into existing legal and regulatory buckets. Because for better or for worse, that's the way regulators and courts think. They say, how can I take new tech and fit it into the existing framework for what I already understand?
So from Fusang's point of view, the digital token is the share. It's not a security token.
Yeah, very specifically, we will say it is the share certificate, right? A concept of a share is it's a legal concept.
Yeah.
And specifically, at least how Fusang does it is we take the share cert, which is the token, we map that against someone's identity, or usually a UBO, an ultimate beneficial owner. And from that, you can build the register of members of a company, right? i.e. the shareholders, if that makes sense.
Okay, fair enough. And I'm just coming back to you on one last point. You said you challenge anyone to name one of the big brokers in the 1980s.
Yes, I see.
Salomon Brothers.
Congratulations. You're showing
Congratulations.
But I guess the pertinent point is that literally none of these people exist. And obviously, metamorphosed, they've been acquired, but not with those same names, right? And I think it's interesting to think about whether or not the big bulge bracket investment banks of today will be the same in 10, 20 years time. So.
Well, that is an excellent question, Sanjeev. So I think that definitely is part of the topic on Musheer specifically, where he's going to talk about the basis of blockchain, the difference between different tokens. You obviously have ICOs, IEOs, SCOs, NFTs. So we will all discuss the difference and obviously give you a little bit more details on that.
Fantastic. We get more questions.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Oh, great. Well, I'm loving this. Sanjeev, thank you again for participating. So now we have Rustam.
Hello.
Good evening. Hello.
Whereabouts are you, Rustam?
I'm also in Hong Kong. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. it's really interesting to attend this this discussion, being among a lot of experts regarding cryptocurrency. As a student, I'm like learning more about this, and yeah. So I had a question regarding the cryptocurrency. As like recently, most of the experts are expressing their opinions regarding how cryptocurrency can be dangerous. I mean, they had exactly the same opinions back in I don't know, a couple of years ago, how Bitcoin was like, it had the price of the share were really low, but now it increased to like it increased dramatically. So the question is, can other cryptocurrencies have exactly the same trajectory as Bitcoin? What do you think? Like, what's your opinion in the coming couple of years? For example, for me as a student, seeing those prices, it's like I'm not that experienced. So for me, buying something which is really cheap would be really interesting. So just to know your opinion on that. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone wants to know what's going to moon next.
I want to know also.
What do you think, Musheer?
Look, it's again not investment advice. Henry can give it. I'm not like licensed to do it. But I completely agree. You know, I mentioned this a few years ago as well. In 3 years' time, when we look at the crypto world, in the top 10, I'm sure Bitcoin will be there. I'm almost sure that Ethereum will be there, but I don't know about the other 8, right? And if you compare the top 10 cryptocurrencies 5 years ago to the ones that are here now, only these 2 are possibly there, right? And not many others. Maybe Dogecoin made a comeback there. So it is an evolving ecosystem. The technology is maturing. It's not yet mature, right? So, and with that come newer, like Polkadots come in, and USDT and all these stable coins were not in existence a few years ago. Binance was not in existence. So Binance coin, being one of the most traded ones, is not around. So I feel in 3 to 5 years' time, it's still going to be evolving. So when you're looking at the cryptocurrency market, and if you want to find value, you do it 2 ways, and you're trading stocks, right? You try to figure out the fundamentals. You do the value investing a la Warren Buffett, or you try to do speculative and momentum-based trading. So if you're looking at value-based, try to figure out how the technology is, who are the people building it, what's their strength, how much money have they raised, in whichever way, how are they spending that? Because they give those updates. What is their developer community? I think that's very important, because for things to grow, how strong is that happening? Are key elements for you to determine whether this company is strong, right? Secondly is looking at regulatory aspects. Are there under regulatory aspects with that impact? Like XRP is a classic example of somebody getting impacted by regulatory aspects, as with Tether, right? So you got to be aware of how these could impact. On the other side, if you're looking at momentum and you're looking at speculative assets, then try to use some of the technical indicators or look at the ones that are gaining a strong momentum, right? You can look at moving averages and volumes, etc., to try to determine which could be the better ones. I mean, that's probably the best way to look at short term versus long term. But for me, for longer term, it would be try to get these fundamentals in perspective. And if they have strong fundamentals, even if short term they tend to go down, they will get picked up over a period of time when a bigger announcement comes.
By the way, Rustam, Musheer used to be a trader himself too. Before,
that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Fantastic.
Someone in our community would love to have you post exactly those kind of things.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what it's for.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much,
Sam, and hopefully we see you soon.
Sure.
I think we still have probably time for another 1 or 2 more questions. So if we have anyone else from the audience wanting to raise their hand, please feel free to do so. You see.
Well, if not, tell us about details of this upcoming masterclass.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
Is it?
Okay, so
how do you join?
First of all, thanks everyone for participating today. So I guess it's now time for our instructor to tell us more about this up and coming masterclass. We'll probably start off with Musheer, who's teaching on the 26th of March. Musheer, do you want to give our audience here a little bit of insights as to what you're going to cover?
Right. Look, my focus is going to be around giving an insight on fundamentals of blockchain. So we look at various elements of that. So looking at different products, how did blockchain come about? What's been the growth of money, as it were. To looking at different protocols and comparing them. Then we move into looking at how the market has evolved. What are the applications across different industries, but specifically also looking at applications in financial services, then regulatory and policy approach to cryptocurrencies and blockchain. However, mainland China has a policy framework. India is looking to develop the same for blockchain, while regulatory aspects are could be on a tangent or could be running in parallel for different countries. So we look at that as well. And as an extension of that, I'll also look to cover fundamentals of central bank digital currencies and how they are growing in numbers.
Fantastic. Great. Henry?
Well, I guess I'll be doing day 2 on digital securities specifically. I really mean what I say when I say that I think 2021 is going to be the tipping point for digital securities and digital assets broadly. Again, by the end of this year, I don't think everyone and their mother is going to be owning Bitcoin. I don't think that every financial institution is going to be dealing in digital assets, but I guarantee that everybody will have it on their mind. And I guarantee that as we speak, the boards of every major bank and financial institution around the world are looking at exactly these topics right now. And actually, I was talking to a marketing team earlier about saying we need to create a graphic of Jamie Dimon, like 2.5 years ago, saying, I will fire any JP Morgan employee caught owning Bitcoin. And today, when he says everybody should have at least 1% of their net worth in Bitcoin. And like I said, our interest really in Fusang, in the digital security space, is in seeing if we can take this entire world of just traditional assets out there and represent them in digitized form. I think that in the years to come, kids are going to look back in 2021 and be shocked by the fact that you could stream 4K Netflix videos on your phone and you could do calls like we're doing right now. And if you wanted to own an asset, you had a slip of paper. It's going to blow their mind. They're going to say, how is it possible that all of these worlds coexisted? And I foresee a world in the years to come where all assets everywhere are digitized. And again, shares, bonds, funds, it doesn't matter what they are, art, assets. There's this whole world of assets left to be tokenized. I'll be talking in our masterclass about history of securities. I'll be talking a bit about the operational aspects of how exactly to tokenize securities, how to structure them, and talking a bit about how I see or how I'm going to guess that this world is going to evolve. Because to me, the benefit of digital assets and digital securities is not just better, cheaper, quicker, faster. To me, that's the sort of layer 1 benefit. The real question with any new technology like this is always, what can you uniquely do with it that you couldn't do before? Just like, as I always say, social media wasn't just mail order catalogs online. It has redefined the way in which people, companies, consumers, how all of us communicate. I think the same will be true for digital assets. And I'll be talking, I suppose, a lot about what I call stakeholder capitalism, how I think this is all going to radically redefine the relationships that companies have with the stakeholders and their shareholders.
Fantastic.
We've got one last question.
Okay, Sanjeev, we're putting you back on spotlight. You have a question.
Yeah, Henry mentioned Jamie Dimon and his threat to fire people. If you bring it up to date, 2 days ago, Citigroup issued a 100-page report on the future of Bitcoin. It's issued on March the 1st. I don't know if you've seen it. And they've gone out and said, in about 7 years from now, we wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin became a trade currency. I find that a little hard to take in the light of China's development of CBDC. And I wonder whether you have any initial comments on that. Bear in mind, China's CBDC is not blockchain based, but Bitcoin is. I really don't see it. I don't know whether you have an off-the-cuff remark on that or whether you've even seen the Citigroup report that came out, but it's quite fascinating to read.
You want to go first, Musheer? I'll close off.
Yes, look, I was surprised with that statement, but it's a much broader report. In a sense, if you look at that particular statement, it was stating that with a lot of major players like MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, etc., enabling Bitcoin-based payments, this could be one option as a neutral, right? Now, we are looking at Bitcoin, but for international trade, the other counter could be DM, right, from Facebook, which is more likely to be there if the regulators allow that. Now, because DM is issued by a private company, that's another issue. While when you look at Bitcoin, it's an open source, but the control is not with governments, etc. Where I see this coming from is more so to find this interconnectedness or interoperability between different CBDCs, and everyone's trying to figure out which is going to be that cryptocurrency that can enable and be cross-border in nature. I kind of agree with you. I don't see either Bitcoin or existing cryptocurrency becoming that in the near term. It's probably much longer, and I actually expect something like a PIS coin could become that token or whatever you want to call it that will facilitate international trade. So you've had the Hong Kong Monetary Authority and Bank of Thailand working on Project Line Rock and Project Inathon, right, which is to facilitate cross-border trade finance. Now, the PBOC and Central Bank of UAE have both joined this project, which is being facilitated by the BIS Innovation Node in Hong Kong. So I see this as the POC for broader collaboration between different central banks and becoming that potential whatever token or coin comes out of that or that system may be more likely. On a private side of things, if things evolve as they are, Bitcoin has that potential. If everybody internationally says, hey, we will use this as a medium between private organizations, right? Provided that Bitcoin is legal tender in those countries. So currently, Bitcoin is not legal tender in many countries, and India is likely to ban it from the reports. I mean, it's speculative, yes, of course, but China already does not allow it. So if you have these in condition, you can't really do or have that in play.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that, Sanjeev. And again, looking forward to see you end of this month. So I think we have to conclude this live Q&A. I appreciate everyone's participation and of course, Musheer and also Henry. Again, guys, we're showing it on our screen. Please join the Fusang community. We have an app that launched, when was this? Yesterday. So if you want to find reliable content on anything about crypto and digital assets, please download this app and also sign up to our masterclass using this QR code and enjoy the early bird promo. If you still have any questions, you can either contact myself or Hoyo. And we will also like to thank Happier for working with us on this one. I'm not sure if Hoyo, the co-founder, is here, would like to say a few words to our audience.
Where are you, Julio?
Okay, Julio. I think we have to unmute him.
There we go. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm doing it. There we go.
Julio.
Hey.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I know it's the end, so I'll just very quickly just say, yeah, it was a great session. Thanks, Henry, Syed, Musheer, and Lynn Dane. And also, we're very glad to be a part of this. So Edge Academy is helping to empower everybody through education, particularly in these new kind of areas that people are looking to learn. So very excited to be a part of this with you guys, Fusang.
Fantastic.
So thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Hoya, for all the hard work so far.
Yeah, we love it. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys on the masterclass.
Yes.
Once you come, I think, sign up for the course in our community app, there's actually a whole space where you can already start asking questions and posting. I would be very keen to get a discussion going before even the masterclass happens. also to get a feel for the kinds of topics that people want to cover. That's the whole point of these things. We'll be trying to run it exactly like we ran this call in a bit more of an interactive fashion. I think this was amazing. And so we would love to hear if there are specific areas of things that people want to cover. You want to talk more about CBDCs, talk more about
STO,
history and future of money.
Yeah.
All topics are fair game. So just come join that little course in the community and let us know. And even if you don't want to sign up for the course, come join the community anyway. We'll be having plenty more events like this and plenty more masterclasses besides, and would just love to interact and have a chat about digital assets more broadly.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Have a good evening or good morning, wherever you're dialing from, and we hope to see you soon again.
Thanks, everybody. Looking forward to
share.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.